Good morning and welcome. Now this is the ballot for the premium election coverage of the Ondo gubernatorial elections 2024. Yes, indeed, we're starting at 7 a.m. this morning just so we can get a quick start. It's a big day in Ondo State as millions of registered voters head to the polls to decide their next governor. INEC has deployed materials and also personnel across the state, and the Bimodal Voter Accreditation System, the BVAS, is ready to ensure transparency at all 3,933 polling units. And of course, I'm not here alone this morning because I have with me Judith, my regular co-host every single Saturday and Sunday morning. Judith, good morning and welcome.
Good morning to you, Mazino, and good morning to our viewers at home. It's going to be quite the day today, and we'll definitely want you to stay with us as we bring you real-time updates, expert analysis, and on-ground reporting with our correspondents that are scattered across the 18 local government areas of Ondo State. And I must tell you, this it's nothing like you've ever seen before for this election. I don't think we've seen this type of race for state governorship. I think about 15 political parties are vying for the ticket. But, I mean, to be honest, it's a two-man race, a two-horse race. But what's very significant about this particular elections is that both of them, of the ruling party, which is the PDP in the state, and the APC as well, which is the ruling party for the country, they've all been deputy governors at both the late governor's tenure. So this is going to be quite the election to watch. It's very tightly contested, and we are waiting to see what that would look like today as the indigents and the residents of Ondo State, they head out to the polls to cast their votes. And very interesting times ahead. They have said, the INEC have said that they are ready to go. They have put out, made sure to distribute as much as they can to all the 18 local government areas in terms of voting materials. They've been able to deploy their personnel. Security is on ground. We've been talking to our correspondent since yesterday to see the preparedness of INEC, but we hope to see what today will pan out to be. But Ondo is going to the polls to decide who will be the #1 citizen for the next 4 years.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be very exciting, just like you have noted, Judith, as we are looking at a race, well, predominantly between two brothers, let's take it so, who have a very interesting knowing of what the state has been like since they've served both as deputy governors of the state from before. It's very interesting. 1.7 million permanent voters cards collected. So this is an increase from what we saw at the last elections in 2020. We also have a list of all the party members, or rather all the candidates from the different parties that will be taking place or that will be hoping to get votes for today. Apart from the two major ones which we've just spoken about, Loki Aidatiwa and also Agbola Ajayi, we've got Abbas Mimiko of the ZLP, Shola Ebiseni of the LP, Otitoju Akinloye of the AA, Ajibola Abraham, Accord Party, Adeyemi Nejo of the ADC, Olugbenga Adam of the NNPP, Babatunde Ali of the PRP, Adekunle Ajayi of the AAC, Isaac Ogunfemi of the APM, Babatunde Fadiju of the APP, and Olatunji Popola of the APGA, that's APGA, and also last but not least, Kehinde Paul of the YP. A lot happened from before the elections, especially with the LP party thinking, or well, the word that was out there was that there was a disqualification, but however that was not the case as the proper information was passed. INEC has assured of preparedness, and security agencies are saying that it's going to be plenty of security, and that is a major factor here for this election, don't you think, Judith?
It's going to be, in fact, it will be a major factor for the election when it comes to just the preparedness and making sure that all of the indigents of Ondo are out to pretty much engage in their civic responsibility and do that in a free and fair manner. Now, there have been talks about vote buying and curbing vote buying, which is something that we hope to see in terms of the decline of such. Now, we know that the economic downturn that we've seen and the soaring cost of living is one thing to be worried about when it comes to vote buying. But also the president, President Bola Tinubu, has also put out a statement regarding the Ondo State election. And called on all the INEC members, INEC itself, to make sure that the elections is free and fair. And he also spoke to all the parties as well to conduct themselves in a very lawful manner, and asked and joined the Ondo indigents to please to come out and engage in their civic responsibility. And also, we do know that all of the parties did sign a peace accord as well to ensure that it is very, very, very safe, which is electoral violence. Now, we know that Ondo, when it comes to electoral violence in the state, is quite sketchy. Not so much so it's been talked about there, but it's something of concern given what's happened past 2 weekends ago that had to have the police step in. But we hope to see a very violent-free election for this Saturday. All eyes are on Ondo State, that's for certain.
Yes, indeed. Well, regarding those spots that have recorded certain violence, there has been adequate measures put in place. Now, I'm being told that we're being joined by Ayodeji Ologun. He is media entrepreneur and also general manager of Melody FM. He's joining us this morning as we talk about preparations for today's elections in Ondo State. I'm hoping that we have him now. Ayodeji, good morning. Thank you very much for adding us, or rather for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here. Now, as we are looking toward the start of activities for today, I'm wondering what you have in mind, what you think might be seen come today as people are heading to the polls to decide who their #1 citizen for Ondo State is going to be. Of course, taking note what's happening regarding zoning and security. What's your take on that, Ayodeji?
Well, like you have rightly professed earlier in your introduction, the election coming up in Ondo State today is one that is not only strategic but dramatic. And that is because there are two key contestants. The two leading contestants are not just from the same federal constituency. They have also been deputy governor to the immediate past governor of the state at 2 different times. Agbola Ajayi was the deputy governor in the first term of Rotimi Akeredolu. And of course, Lucky Aiyedatiwa ran the same ticket with Rotimi Akeredolu in the second term before his demise. So this in itself is dramatic, and a lot of people are looking up to see what will be the outcome of the election today. There are 17 contestants in today's election, but like your partner Ali said, it's more of a two-horse race. The PDP and the APC seems to be the two parties at the front burner, and there's the likelihood that whoever we emerge as the governor today will be from either of these two parties. But there's something very important that we need to know in today's election, and that is the fact that for those of us who have been observers, who have been practitioners in the media over the years, Ondo State election coming up today is not as contesting, is not as challenging, is not as close as the election in Ondo State have been. Cast your mind back from 1999. It has been, the power of incumbency has never played a vital role in determining who becomes the governor of Ondo State, unlike in other states where the power of incumbency is very key. In 1999, when the governor then, Ade Farati, spent 4 years, and Agagu of the PDP took over from him. Agagu spent 4 years, and then Olusegun Mimiko took over from him. He didn't do a second term. Olusegun Mimiko is the only governor in the history of Ondo State that successfully completed 2 terms since 1999. And he was succeeded by Olurotimi Akeredolu, who unfortunately we lost towards the end of his second term. That means that Olusegun Mimiko is the only governor that has successfully spent 8 complete years in office as governor of Ondo State since 1999. What that means is this, that today's election will be either of 2 things: a confirmation of the love and admiration of the people of Ondo State for Rotimi Akeredolu, which they would be exemplifying by endorsing or voting back into office a Lucky Aiyedatiwa, who was his erstwhile deputy and took over from him as acting governor, and subsequently as the governor of Ondo State after the demise of the former governor. Or we are likely going to see a shift in what has used to be in Ondo State, that is the opposition taking over from the incumbent. This is strategic because it will redefine the politics and the dynamics of Ondo State. Today also, the people of Ondo State will be determining what their future would be. A lot of people have opined that the likelihood of the victory of Electoral will be it was predetermined by the fact that the political elite in Ondo State seems to have come into an agreement of a sort to have a lucky pushed forward, knowing fully well that he would not, by the provision of the law, seek a second term. The law of the land says you cannot take oath of office more than twice. He has taken an oath of office as governor when he took over as the governor of Ondo State under the demise of Oluwarotimi Akeredolu. If he wins today, it simply means that he will be taking oath of office again in February, and that will prevent him from running for a second term. That seems to be the consensus among the political elite to practically give victory to Electoral so that the table becomes clean. The table becomes clean because if you look at the rotational tendency of Ondo State, it's been one senatorial district to the other. And that difference came from the north, succeeded by Nagagu, who came from the south. Nagagu was succeeded by Mimiko from the central. Mimiko as governor attempted to change the order.
Yeah, I'm really glad. I mean, a very solid analysis there from you, and I'm really glad we're talking about rotational sectioning when it comes to leadership in the state, right? Because as you're steering the conversation there, let me ask you, both popular candidates, and that is Ajayi and Ayedatiwa, they are both from Ondo South District, right? How will this play out when it comes to zoning for leadership in this state?
That's what I was speaking to. If you go back to 1999, the governor in 1999 was Ade Farati. He was from the North Senatorial District. He was succeeded by an Agagu, who was from the South Senatorial District. Agagu was succeeded by a Bibiko, who was from the Central.
We seem to have lost Ayodeji there. Ayodeji Ologun, he's a media entrepreneur and the general manager at Melody FM. And he just joined us to give a bit more insight to help us paint a picture of what is to come today and what exactly is on the tickets. And that's the ballot for today, which is pretty much a two-horse race at this point for Loki Ayedatiwa. There we go. And Agbola Ajayi. Both with deputy governors of the state. One is the incumbent deputy governor and is the APC contestant, as well as while the other is also a former deputy governor and is from the PDP. So they're both candidates vying for this ticket. It looks like a popularity contest. It says it's not a popularity contest. Will the power of the incumbent play in this? There's so much in store for this. This is usually a stronghold in the last 8 years for the opposition. Will this also switch as well? There's so much on the ticket. We understand that Ayodeji Ologun is back. Ayodeji, if you're on, if you can hear me, please continue. Yes, please continue.
So I was saying that if you look at the rotational power in Ondo State, it's key to understand that the first governor in 1999 was Ade Farati. He was from from the North Senatorial District. He was succeeded by Olusegun Agagu from the South Senatorial District. Olusegun Agagu was succeeded by Olusegun Mimiko, who was from the Central. When Mimiko was leaving office, he attempted to have an Ayetayo Jegede succeeding in that election by picking him from the same Central as the candidate of the PDP. And the people of Ondo State rejected the entire Jegede because that was an attempt to alter the rotational tendency for the governorship. And that is what produced an Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, which took power from the central back to the north. Now, Oluwarotimi Akeredolu was succeeded by Loki Ayedatiwa, who is from the south. He is the governor now. If he wins today's election, he will become another governor for the next 4 years. If Agbola Ajayi wins the election, power will still remain in the south because an Agbola Ajayi have the tendency of having 2 terms as governor, which means power will come back to the central. So you can see the rotation from the north to the south to the central, from the central back to the north, from the north it is in the south now. So a lot of people are asking questions. Would the south settle for a local Edatiwa who can only spend 4 years in office by the provision of the law, having taken oath of office as governor last December to succeed Oluwatimi Akeredolu? Or will the people of Ondo State vote for Agbola Ajayi, who has the tendency of spending 2 terms of 8 years as governor before power will come back to the central in rotational order? This is one of the things that will be seen in this election. But like I said, the political elite in Ondo State wanting power to return to the central as quickly as possible, it seems to have agreed in a sort to cede power to Lucky Aiyedatiwa. That is why you will see that most of the political gladiators in Ondo State, across all political divides, even those who does not want Lucky Aiyedatiwa as governor, those who attempted to have him impeached as deputy governor when he had a running battle with his ex-wife boss, Oluwatimi Akeredolu, all of them seems to have put the past behind them. All of them seems to be on the same table with him. All of them seems to be rooting for him. The likes of Olushola Oke, Jimo Ibrahim, Olusegun Mimiko of Ondo State. All of these bigwigs seems to be on the same table with Lucky Aiyedatiwa. And political analysts are quick to say that this is an attempt to have him become governor again, spent only 1 time in office as provided by the law, since he cannot take out of office the 3rd time, so that power can rotate back to the central.
Well, Ayodeji, thank you very much. That's a very interesting analysis there, especially regarding the Aiyedatiwa Ajayi instance, particularly. But let's broaden this. Let's make it wider. Let's talk about the infrastructure that has been put in place by INEC itself. How confident are you, or how confident do you think the people of Ondo State are in INEC for this election, noting what has happened in the past, especially in Edo State, and the rhetorics that came from that? So how confident are you, one, and how confident do you think the people of Ondo State are in INEC and the preparations leading up to these elections?
Yeah, I was personally in Ondo, in Akure particularly, on Tuesday and Wednesday to cover and to witness the receiving of the INEC materials, sensitive materials that was sent from the INEC headquarters in Abuja to Ondo State. And I can tell you that if what I saw on Tuesday and Wednesday, when electoral materials were received by INEC, if they are going to maintain the same tempo, the same tendency, the same openness, then there is nothing to fear in today's election. Because when those materials were received in the presence of journalists, observers, and political agents, the items received were announced. They were displayed for everyone to have a knowledge of it. And I'm hoping that they will transfer that same transparency order in today's election, first in the distribution of electoral materials to Waterloo government, which is ongoing as we speak. And I hope that INEC will be proactive in distribution of electoral materials to very sensitive areas of the state. There are very difficult terrain in Ondo State, which is giving the fear that what happened in Edo might happen again in Ondo. You recall that in Edo, some local government did not get electoral materials until about 10 a.m., 11 a.m. And in Ondo State, there are places, particularly in the south, that are not motorable, that you can only reach through the waters or through a chopper. So if INEC is not having an alternative, if they are depending on moving electoral materials by road, then terminate where the road ends and not use the water, those places might have issues. So I'm hoping that INEC has made alternative provisions, especially through chopper delivery to some parts of the south, particularly Ugbo, Ijo, some part of Ikale, and some part of Ilade, Raromi, and the rest of them that are seated on the water. These are terrains that is giving doubt to the possibility of quick delivery of electoral materials to the polling units across those local governments. But I must say this, The one thing that INEC must not fail to do in this election is to allow people to vote without the use of the BVAS. If INEC ensures that the BVAS is used in all the polling units across the state today, that will give some credence to the electoral process, because in each polling unit, you can look at the number of people captured by the BVAS, align it with the total number of votes announced, and there will not be issues about whether votes were written, votes were stolen, or figures were manufactured. These are the things that we hope. Another thing that you asked, which I need to really respond to, is the readiness or the confidence of the people in INEC in today's election. I am afraid that there might be a likely low turnout of voters. There might likely be voters apathy. And that would not be because INEC did not do the needful. It will not be because people are afraid. There have not been threats. There have not been killings. But poverty is rife in the land. People are losing confidence in governance. People are losing confidence in the process of election. And if that is the case, there will be likely low turnout of voters, which we call voters apathy, in today's election. And that might impact on the total numbers of voters today.
Now, Ayodeji, we're going to come to that, what the people want, much later. But I wanted to know, since you brought it up, regarding security. You were there only just a couple of days ago. What does it seem like currently when it comes to the security in Ondo State, especially after the president has vouched that there will be adequate security presented at the elections?
I can tell you for a fact that security in the build-up to today's election has been very, very encouraging. I will tell you why. On Wednesday, I witnessed what will have resulted in a clash if the people are not resolved for peace. You will recall that that same Wednesday was when the APC had the grand finale of their rally, and a lot of dignitaries came into the city. Former governors, governors of other states, ministers, the vice president, and the likes. While they were coming to the center the Democracy Park for their campaign, they met on the way the campaign train of the PDP. And one would have thought that the way it used to be, it would have resulted into a clash. I can tell you that each of them took their lanes, went on about their business peacefully. There was no fight. There was no gunshot. Peace was not disrupted. This gives hope that political gladiators are already understanding that what brings about victory in an election is not violence. I can also confirm to you that on Wednesday at the airport, while waiting to receive the vice president by the political leaders of the APC, shortly before, the aircraft carrying PDP leaders, former speakers, former governors of the PDP, landed a few minutes before the flight of the vice president landed. And when they alighted, they met on ground the likes of Oshiomhole, the governor of the state, the minister of interior, and the rest of them. And these individuals interacted peacefully, notwithstanding their political differences. And in the build-up, there have not been killings and maimings. So I sincerely hope that this will be sustained today. The security agencies have been very up to task. They've been very professional. And I hope that what we saw pre-election will also be seen during election today to ensure the freeness and the fairness of the process of election this morning.
Oh, very solid analysis as always, Ayodeji. And we hope to see, violence has been, the cost of living is one situation, violence is another. But let's look at the front pages of the major newspapers for today as it regards the Ondo State election. And we're going to get started with the Punch newspaper this Saturday morning. And pretty much as just comes on your screen there, Ondo poll, APC, PDP set to battle as 1.7 million voters elect next governor. Ondo South is battleground for candidates. Was pretty much the same conversation we had regarding, the fact that both 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 leads in this race are truly from Ondo South, and just basically setting the stage for the battleground. Is it the battleground, really?
Funny enough, for me, Ondo State is not the battleground, because if you look at the voting pattern in previous elections in Ondo State, the real battleground is Ondo Central, particularly Akure South. Over time, whoever wins Akure South wins Owo and wins all the local governments in Akoko has often emerged as the winner. The vote that comes from the South senatorial district is not so much. Unfortunately, it will be divided among the two candidates. Like I said, Agbola Ajayi and Loke Edatiwa are not just from the same senatorial district. The two of them are from the same federal constituency. While Agbola Ajayi is from Eseodo, Loke Edatiwa is from Ilaje. And what we used to have is Ilaje, Eseodo federal constituency. And there's a likelihood that Agbola Ajayi will win Eseodo. There's a likelihood that Loke Edatiwa will win Ilaje, which means that the vote in the South will be divided among these two, because the two of them are from there. But substantially, the battleground will be the Central. Unfortunately, people of the Central are eager to have power back to them. And so they are beginning to think that voting for Loke Edatiwa, who only has one term to spend, will bring power back to them quickly. So this is what I see. I see the Central as the battle, and not the South.
There's a part of that headline there, which is 1.7 million voters. Now, we've seen Ondo State to be characterized by, you know, high voter turnout. Do you see that happening this time around as well?
Unfortunately, I don't see that happening. If you look at the total number of voters in this election, it's 1.7. And the record has it that the people of Ondo State as of now are over 5 million people. There are over 3.2 voters that are mature enough to vote. Only 1.7 collected, collected voters card to vote. Previously in the history of Ondo State, the highest number of votes that we have had has been about 600,000. So whoever has become Ondo State governor in recent time has often become governor of the state by less than 500,000 votes. So I don't see anything more than 1 million, if not less, voting in this election. And that is because of the extent of poverty, of the extent of hunger. People have lost confidence in the electoral system, and as such, people might not turn out votes as expected in today's election.
My concern is regarding the fact that both both candidates are from the same constituency. I'm wondering whether this doesn't disenfranchise any other constituency from before. What the dynamics might play out is that some people might feel, hey, it's not my constituency, so why bother going out? I don't know. These are just, you know, arguments out there. What do you think regarding this dynamic playing into the votes?
There are two dynamics. I can tell you for a fact that in the South Senatorial District, a lot of people will not vote. They will not vote because of what we call allegiance to their roots. A lot of people in the South will not vote because they will feel, how do I vote for one brother of mine against the other? So some of them are likely stay out of the voting process so that they will not be seen as loving one and betraying the other. Also, in the North Senatorial District particularly, there's likely going to be apathy. A lot of people from the North who are still feeling the pain of the fact that their son, Olorotimi Akeredolu, did not finish his tenure of 8 years before he was taken away by death because of his illness. A lot of them will still carrying that pain in their hearts. So a lot of them might not actually go out to vote. A lot of them might just see it as it's not our team. It's their war, let them go and fight it. It's their battle, let them go and sort it out. So substantially, a lot of people from the Northern Senatorial District will not even bother to go out to vote today because they're still not in the pain of the loss of their son who could not complete his 2 terms in office. And that's why I again say that the Central remains the battleground where the 2 major candidates will slug it out to get the confidence and the vote of the people of the Central who have nothing to lose. The 2 contestants, major contestants, are not from them. The two deputy governors who are contesting this election are not from them. They are the one waiting to receive power after the power shifts from this election. So those are the two dynamics that might also play out in terms of zoning in today's election.
Okay. We're going to move on now to the next headline, or rather the next daily front page, and that's the Guardian newspaper. And the big one in front of the Guardian, hang on a second, let's see if we can rectify that. Yes, thank you very much. The Guardian newspaper has this all eyes on INEC security agencies as Ondo goes to poll. Security is a big a deal, especially regarding the past elections in River State, where we had security agencies, police actually withdrawn, not really withdrawn, but the word was they did not take major part in the processes. Now, regarding Ondo and security, we asked you from before regarding what you thought about the situation, but what role do we see the agencies, the different agencies, especially the police, playing here, and how do you expect them to actually conduct?
Well, the IG have done well in giving assurance to the people of Ondo State in this election. And one of the moves taken by the IG
Hoping we haven't lost him there again.
He is a media entrepreneur and the general manager, Melody FM. We just lost his audio there. We'll try to connect with him again. It's pretty much talking about the security outfit for ahead of the elections come today. What would the election? What would the security outfit look like, and what can they anticipate going into the elections? I understand that your DG, you're back. Please continue with your submission.
Well, I was saying that one of the assurances given by the IGP, which is critical and sensitive in today's election, is the decision by the IGP to ensure that pseudo security outfits do not participate in the security architecture of today's election. And that is talking about vigilantes, Amotekun, and the rest of them. Because a lot of people have the opinion that these are pseudo security agencies that are loyal to whoever is the incumbent governor. So the IGP has done well in ensuring that these pseudo security agencies do not participate in the security architecture of the election of Ondo State today, which means that about 40-something thousand police officers have been deployed to cover today's election. And that in itself is substantial. We sincerely hope that these police officers will not compromise the process. We sincerely hope that they will not become tools in the hand of politicians to do and undo. If they stick to professionalism, I can assure you that security today, in today's election, will be something that all of us can be pretty proud of, unlike what we saw in Rivers local government election and in some parts of Edo in the land gubernatorial election.
Let's move on to our next newspaper, shall we? Next front page here is The Nation, all right? And it goes Ondo, Tinubu calls for free poll as voters elect governor. Heavy security as 1,793,914 voters decide. INEC restores Ayodele Festus as Labour Party candidate. Akeredolu family disowns endorsement of SDP candidate. Analysis how the political parties stand out. Now, I must say that as heavy security is present in Ondo, and as Tinubu calls for free poll as voters elect their governor, we also know that some very key political figures are in Ondo, as well as the security outfits that they are also watching the elections. I won't say they are observers.
They're rooting for their candidates, that's for sure.
So they're rooting for their candidates, that's exactly for sure. We have got the Vice President, Kashim Shettima. We have a video of him just stepping out from the private jet there as he was stepping down, visiting yesterday. We also do hear, whisperings on the ground that some governors from the PDP Governor Forum is also in there, also in the state as well, there to show their support for the PDP candidate. And we know that, as you can see in the video there, you can also see the photograph there of the Ogun State Governor plus the Lagos State Governor. Those are the governors for the APC that are currently in the state. So they're all rooting for their candidates. And following the statement from the president, ensuring and enjoining the INEC as well as the security outfits and the Ondo State indigents and residents to make sure to come out and vote. I don't want to ask who you're rooting for, but how did they pan out for you, Ayodeji?
Well, to put the issue into perspective, those key figures that you mentioned only visited 2 days ago, and I want to believe that many of them have returned to base because that video you were showing, I was on ground to cover the arrival of the vice president and also the key leaders from the PDP Governors Forum. They all came into the city on Wednesday for the grand finale of the campaign of the two parties, the two major parties, that is the PDP and the APC. Because by the law, they have no business as governors of other states in Ondo State election today. So they only came to campaign at the grand finale of the APC and the PDP. Because what role? They cannot be observers. They cannot be allowed to be roaming the streets when they are not journalists, they are not election observers, they are not security personnel. The best they can do is the route for their candidates, which is what they did on Wednesday, by coming from the grand finale of the campaigns of the two major parties, that is the PDP and the APC. Talking about the message of Mr. President, it is something to give a message. It's another thing to show signs that the messages were well intended. Why did I say this? When the vice president visited Ondo State on Wednesday to campaign on behalf of the president for the candidates of their party, that is Lucky Aiyedatiwa, one will have expected that it will be an opportunity to speak to very critical issues of governance. But if it is what I saw at that campaign, it was much of an appeal to sentiment. The campaign was not issue-based. Either the vice president, the chairman of the party, and other leaders that spoke at the campaign of the APC, they did not speak to the issue of poverty. They did not speak to the issue of economy. They did not speak to the issue of security. All that they were talking about is, if Akeredolu had been alive, he would have wanted you to vote for APC. If Majasin was alive, he will have a member of the APC, this and that. These are sentimental words. These are sentimental statements for me. One will have expected that such campaign will have been an opportunity to speak to very critical issues of infrastructure, security, electoral freedom, and all of the rest. But I didn't see that. The same thing applied to the PDP at the grand finale of their own election too, their own campaign too. Instead of speaking to issues and what they would do for the people of Ondo State, what you heard the likes of Tambuwa and the rest of them talk about is the fact that APC has failed you, you are hungry, you are this, you are that. These are not issues for me. And that is why I can confidently say, now apart from the lesser parties, the two major parties in this election, their campaign have not been really issue-based. It's all been about sentiment and attacks on one of the candidates or the other.
Okay, Ayodeji, it seems that these two major parties have overshadowed whatever influence the other parties have. I've got two questions for you. One regarding the presence of these big wigs from these two major parties in the state. Whether it will have any influence on the voters. You've just noted that they weren't really discussing exactly what the people wanted to hear. What the people want is another conversation on its own, and we're going to get to that. But what influence would the presence of these bigwigs from these two major parties have on the votes today, do you think? One, and if you can keep that short, because I have another question coming up.
Well, for me, the coming of the bigwigs to Ondo State a couple of days ago had no influence. I was at the two campaigns, the PDP and the APC. And I can tell you that all the people were interested in was the money to be shared to them by those who brought them to the convergence. Just as they were running up the campaign, you already see the people that were supposed to be listening to the vice president campaigning or to Tambuwa campaigning. We already saw them scampering for food. A lot of them are already scampering to look for their leaders, asking for 5,000, 10,000, the money that brought them to defeat, to wear T-shirts and attend campaigns. But if it had been otherwise, if they were there based on conviction, they would have waited to the end to listen to conversations surrounding the issues that were being talked about. So for me, the coming of those bigwigs was just a jamboree. It was just the usual order, something that they have been used to doing, not because their presence brought any form of conviction to the electorate in any way.
Okay. So while the APC and the PDP are, well, flying in their big wigs, the other parties don't seem to have any word out there. It seems like as if they're being overshadowed by these two major parties, understandably, in any case. However, well, 12 other parties, the ZLP, LP, AP, Accord Party, ADC, the NNPP, the PRP, the AAC, the APN, the APP, APGAR, and also YP. Regarding the LP, just days before today, the election day, there was plenty of, there was a little bit of, let's say, quagmire of sorts, where the candidate had his authenticity questioned. What effect does that have on the votes, or would that have on the votes today?
Well, interestingly, that same scenario played out in 2016 election. You cast your mind back to the contest between Itayo Jegede and Jima Ibrahim, when the two of them were struggling to be candidate of the party in that election. Up till 24 hours before the election, Jima Ibrahim was the substantive candidate of the PDP until the court turned the order and announced Itayo Jegede as the candidate of the party, which means Itayo Jegede only had 24 hours to campaign as the candidate of the PDP. Of course, we know the rest of the story. He lost that election because there was not enough room to campaign. The same thing will impart on the Labour Party. I can tell you for a fact that Ibi Shemi is one of the longest serving political office holders in Ondo State. It's one of the brightest minds that will have given a challenge to the two major candidates in this election. He has been Commissioner of Environment 4 different times in the history of Ondo State. He was Commissioner for Environment under the late Governor of Ondo State from the North, I've forgotten his name now, Adebayo Adefarati. He was Governor, and he was Commissioner under the Olusegun Agagua administration. He was Commissioner for Environment twice under the leadership of Olusegun Mimiko. Unfortunately, he did not have enough time in his hand. The fourth court announced him as the candidate of the party just about a month ago. And just a few days before the general elections, the gubernatorial election, an appeal court overturned his candidacy as the candidate of the party, which means he has not had the correct mindset, the wherewithal, the time, and the legality to have enough time in his hand to campaign. So if you're asking me if he poses any threats to this election, he does not. He might not likely even make it to the top 5 in this election. That's the truth. After the APC and the PDP, those who have the likelihood of having substantive votes in this election is likely to be the candidate of the SDP, who was a candidate, who was an aspirant under the banner of the APC, where Lockheed Atiwa won, and then it decamped to another party. And maybe, just maybe, the candidate of the ADP might also gather some votes. So for me, the Labour Party has no place in today's election, given the circumstances of the emergence of the candidate and the drama that surrounded, the court cases that surrounded the authenticity of the candidate of that party.
Okay.
A lot needs to be discussed about, just basically, I think that it was the first time in a long while, and maybe ever, that in our democratic history that we've seen a 3-man horse race, and that happened during the last election cycle, general elections with the presidential elections. It's always a 2-man horse race situation, and always a popularity contest, and that really changed. And pollsters and even analysts like yourself and us in the media industry, just like ours, also were very surprised by the wave that we saw with the 2023 elections. But I would like for us to dwell more on the defections that you spoke about and how it plays in this election. You talked about Aida Tiwa, defecting to the other party. And how would this play out for the political narrative of Ondo? Aida, can you hear me?
Let me get that question clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Can you please repeat that question, please?
I wanted to dwell on the defections you were talking about.
Yeah, can I hear you? Please repeat the question.
Yes. I wanted to dwell on the defections you were talking about, and I ask, you just cited Lucky Ayedatiwa and how he defected to the other party. And just with this election cycle, how would this play in the political narrative of Ondo State?
Well, Lucky Ayedatiwa, with due respect, is lucky in quotes now, because if he had been unlucky by having the people that contested with him at the primaries not coming back to join him for this election, he will not have stand any chance at all. The likes of Olushola Oki, the likes of Jimoh Ibrahim, the likes of Edema, these are big wigs in the party who would have given him a big problem to handle if they have defected to other parties by the outcome of the primaries of that election. But I don't know how he and the party did it, that they were able to bring back the likes of the former Commissioner for Finance in that state, who was bent on turning the table against Lucky Ayedatiwa. How they were able to bring an Olushola Oki back to the fold, because I saw Olushola Oki prominently on the podium on Wednesday, dancing and rooting for Lucky Ayedatiwa. So Lucky is lucky by the fact that they were able to manage the internal crisis of the APC in ensuring that the political bigwigs of that party did not decamp to other political parties. Rather, they won over those who are gladiators in the other political parties to their side. One of the things that's an advantage to Lucky Ayedatiwa in his election is the unannounced support of the ex-white governor from Ondo State, Olusegun Mimiko, for Lucky Ayedatiwa. Majority of the foot soldiers, those in the political dynasty of Olusegun Mimiko, are aligned with Lucky Ayedatiwa in this election. The likes of all the former speakers of Ondo State are with Lucky Ayedatiwa. That in itself speaks volume. So all that we didn't hear Mimiko say is that go and vote for Lucky. Everyone in his political dynasty have aligned with Lucky. It will have been otherwise if Mimiko and everyone in his political dynasty are standing against Lucky Ayedatiwa. If Olushola Oki is standing against Ayedatiwa, if Jimoh Ibrahim is standing against Ayedatiwa, then you can as well give up on this election, that somebody else other than Lucky would have emerged effortlessly. But because all these political gladiators seems to have come into a consensus to have a Lucky become governor, which I said the reason why, to ensure quick rotation of power back to the central. And that in itself will change the dynamics. Because what we are seeing now, we are not likely going to see it in the next election. The next election will be keenly contested, because after these, the gladiators will go back to base. There will be realignment ahead of the next election, which means whoever will emerge as candidate of political parties in subsequent election after this will have a lot much more work to do, because the table will be thrown open. The rotation will have gone round again. It will be a clean slate. And this will change the projections and the dynamics of politics and politicking in Ondo State.
All right, Ayodeji, first of all, I wanted to tell our viewers that coming up, we're going to be actually going to our correspondents who are spread across Ondo State to be giving us live coverage and telling us exactly what's happening at the different units. But now, Ayodeji, let's talk about the people who matter. We've talked about the candidates, most of them, or at least a few of them. But what about the people that matter, the people of Ondo State? Big question is, what exactly do the people of Ondo State want? Now, it's one thing to ask what they want. It's another thing to tell who exactly, which one of these people are going to be going out there to form the majority that will be voting. We've seen 2.05 million voters registered. We saw 1.7 PVCs collected. You noted that perhaps maybe just the million might come out to vote. But of these numbers that you are suggesting, who would they comprise of? New voters, old voters, youth, the elderly? What do they want that would make them come out to cast these votes?
Substantially, if you look at the breakdown of voters in Ondo State, well over 50,000, well over 50% of voters in this election are comprising of the youths and new voters. That has been the aggregate. both in previous election and this present one. The analysis available to me shows that of the 1.7 that collected voters' card in this election, about 14% of them are new entrants. They are going to be new voters. And all the political parties are doing the best they can to mobilize these young ones who are new voters to vote for them. Substantially, about 46% of the total number of voters in Ondo State are also youths. So if you put this together, that means well about over 50% of voters in this election are going to be the demography of the youths, both those who have been voting before and the over 53,000 new voters that will be joining. And if you put that into perspective, that will tell you what the mindset of an average voter in this election would be. The total number of youths is 726,000. If the whole of them come out to vote, they will form the substantial part of those that will determine who the next governor of Ondo State will be. And what does the youth want? If they are forming the majority of voters, what is the mindset of the youth? The youth are looking up to someone that they can relate with. They are looking for someone who will be governor that can think like them, someone who will be digital, someone who will understand the imports and the input of technology in governance, someone that will depart from the old ways of governance to the real essence of governance, which is empowerment, entrepreneurship, ICT training, and all of such, who will encourage them, who will give them jobs, who will involve them in the art of governance. Many of them want to also be politicians. Many of them want to be SAs, SSAs, commissioners, and advisors. So all of these will form the mindset of the majority of the voters who are going to be youths in determining who will today win the election, who will be in tandem with the hope and aspiration of the young demography of the voters of the state.
Now, let me come to you, Ayodeji, and ask this question. And it's a very, I'm looking at the timeline of the last administration as we switch, as the electorate are about to go to the polls. And what comes to mind is a very fateful Sunday morning in June of 2022, and that's the Owo Church attack. And less than a year after, we saw the demise of the governor of the state. So, to put into context, the Ondo State's residents and indigents have gone through quite an ordeal. What do you think would be their hope for the next 4 years?
Well, like you already said, the people of Ondo State, particularly people of the South and the North Senatorial District, have gone through a lot in recent years. Just as you mentioned your attack, you quickly cast your mind to Electoral, where we have seen caution. More than 2 towns have been sacked by water, buried underground by water in the south. For more than 15 years, some parts of the Southern Senatorial District do not know what electricity looks like. So these are the factors that will play out in determining who the people who will vote for today. The people of Ondo State need 2 critical things. They need security. And that is because of the boundary that we share with very volatile states like Kogi, like Edo. So if there's anything that is paramount to an average Ondo State person, it is security. Right. Number 2, people of Ondo State are looking for a governor that will have their love at heart.
I'll need you to pause for me for a second there because we need to go. I understand that we've lost you there, but thank you so much, Ayodeji Olugun, for just this insightful discussion we've had for the last 1 hour. You've been sublime, to say the least.